Hey everyone, welcome back to AndyDemos. Today I'm finally diving into the Redwing stereo analog modulator from Hamstead Soundworks and That Pedal Show. This one has so much under the hood, and you'll notice on the front it doesn't say chorus or flanger. That's because it basically does everything that's related to modulation when it comes to using a Bucket Brigade device. So let's get into it. At its core, the Redwing analog modulator features two Bucket Brigade delay lines, which makes the Redwing come alive with warm, swirling tones in either mono or true stereo. Apart from familiar controls, the blend spans 100% dry to wet for dialing in just a touch of shimmer or full-on vibrato. And that wet signal has its own active bass and treble to help match vintage warmth or highlight the Redwing's high-fidelity design. Perhaps the best feature is an output gain stage to combat the age-old issue that comb filtering has on the output signal. 3 selectable waveforms cover everything from Peter Hamstead's world-famous sine wave to classic triangle and asymmetrical pulses. The offset engages a shift in time between the first and second BBD lines, enabling extra dimension across the left and right spectrum and through zero flanging with the phase flipped. The rear panel allows the Redwing to adapt to any rig, from true stereo to wet-dry using 2 amps or standard mono. On the inside, you can set the input jack to accept a TRS stereo signal, choose buffered or true bypass operation, and even the power-up state to adapt to your loop switcher. Finally, an expression control is available for those rotary speaker changes, while a momentary hold switch gives you maximum regeneration anytime you want to fly higher. For the full story, check out HamsteadSoundworks.com. And of course, we'll get into those stereo sounds, but I just want to start off real basic in mono. So on the rear, I've set that switch to wet dry, and I'm just using the left output. And I'm normally using kind of like an aux box to mix in a second virtual cabinet, but I don't want to confuse things and make you think that you're hearing stereo. So it's just 1 amp, 1 cabinet, and 1 speaker, and then we'll get into stereo later on. So with that being said, I'm going to start off with a basic chorus sound and then just tweak a few parameters, and all of a sudden we're in flanger land, and it's just by changing really the delay time and the regeneration. So this one gets really slow. Now let's shorten the delay time with the manual knob. We could go all the way to the left, and it's actually a lot shorter than your classic, electric mistress. And the final piece of the puzzle is regeneration, and you'll notice this just gets kind of hollow and metallic sounding, and if we get way up there, it actually will self-oscillate, so you just kind of want to be sure how you dial that one in. And you could adjust the width on all these settings, the chorus, the flanger, and it really just kind of changes the flavor and how deep it goes on the sweep. And speaking of that, we're using the tried and true sine wave here, but we could also get a bit more classic with the triangle wave. Now a bit more width. Now kind of a classic, Andy Summers tone would be to maybe slow it down a bit more and not use so much of the regeneration. And that's kind of the key to his old sound, is that you could really not really tell if it's chorus or flanger because it was kind of right in between. And if you're looking for a bit more of that jet plane swoosh, you might want to play around with the delay time and also the regeneration, but of course, it really accentuates things when you have some distortion in front. And the great thing about the Redwing is that we have control over the tone of the wet signal. So if it's getting kind of brash like it just was with distortion in front, you could get more of a vintage flavor by backing off on the treble. And you could also always back off on the blend on any of these settings and kind of set that more harsh sweep back in the mix. And speaking of blend, you can access all those vibrato sounds by going 100% wet or even close to it, and adjust the tone and also adjust the wiggliness and how extreme the effect is with the width and the manual controls. And normally you don't have regeneration in a vibrato effect, but that doesn't mean you can't use it. And so I'm just gonna take a little bit more of the dry signal, put it back in the mix so it's not so out of tune on this extreme setting. And in regards to that speed range, maxing out the low setting is kind of the perfect speed for a fast Leslie. So for my favorite Leslie setting, I like to back off on the regeneration and play around with the offset of the two delay lines, especially if you play around with the phase switch in the back of the unit. And this really does help if you have the blend up higher, so you really hear the signal kind of fade away when you don't have the dry signal interrupting that. And now here's those two delay lines out of phase like I mentioned. let's get back to that intro lead tone where I was really getting some awesome tape style flanging from the Redwing, and this is done by just increasing the blend 100% or close to it, and so then you're really hearing the comb filtering without the dry signal kind of making sure there's always a signal there. You really kind of want to hear things disappear every once in a while, and we could kind of change that and how often that occurs by changing the wave shape as well. So let's try asymmetrical, which we haven't tried yet, and we're still using an offset of those delay lines, and we still have them out of phase. And flanging is always kind of one of those things that's really in your face, but it doesn't have to be. So let's back off on the blend and see what happens. I'm also going to back off on the treble, which we've seen is really helpful in getting more of a vintage tone. All right, now let's try out some stereo settings, but first I want to start off with the mono configuration, and then I won't change a thing on the pedal except plug in another jack on the output and switch it over to stereo. So now left and right have their own independent delay lines. And you really hear the difference that offset switch makes when you're running in true stereo. Also in stereo, you can switch back to wet-dry, and one of the outputs is always going to remain dry and untouched, and the other is going to be a blend of both of those delay signals. So a cool thing here is that if you want to have some really spaced out settings, say you switched over to the faster speed range, you can always have one side just carry the, the weight of the riff or something, and just have the other amplifier kind of, handle all the spacey stuff. And here's a setting which I really wasn't expecting. It's in stereo still. I have the asymmetrical wave shape selected, and I'm also going to engage the offset with maximum delay between those two different delay lines. And we end up getting this really accentuated offset, kind of almost univibe-like pulse, but it's definitely a flanger and in stereo. Well, there you have it. So many tones packed into this Redwing, and I think I just barely scratched the surface. If you want standard chorus, vibrato, and flanger, it's easily there, but I think there's definitely more for the sonic adventurer. So definitely check out this awesome collaboration at HamsteadSoundworks.com. And thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next Andy demo.